After hundreds of sick and elderly people around the country have died needless deaths from coronavirus, what are our politicians doing? Trying to bring in a radical assisted suicide bill to try and kill even more of them. This is Ben Scallan and you're watching Gript Media. 2020 is not a good year to be a sick or an old person, to say the least. As if COVID-19 and criminal government incompetence in the care homes wasn't bad enough, our politicians' latest push is to introduce euthanasia for the sick, the elderly and other such vulnerable categories. Introduced by Gino Kenny of People Before Profit, this assisted suicide bill is set to be voted on in the Dáil this week before going to a committee. So far, it's already been backed by Sinn Féin, the Social Democrats and Labour, while Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are considering giving their TDs a free vote on the matter. Bear in mind that this completely flies in the face of what leading health authorities in Ireland and the UK recommend. For example, the Royal College of Physicians Ireland issued a position paper on the subject just 3 years ago, saying the RCPI officially opposes the introduction of any legislation supportive of assisted suicide because it is contrary to best medical practice. We promote a considered and compassionate approach to caring for and proactively meeting the needs and concerns of patients who may be approaching the end of their life. According to the experts, allowing assisted suicide is contrary to best medical practice. But that doesn't matter to PBP, of course. To them, medical expertise only matters when it agrees with their agenda. But putting that aside, politicians and the media don't call this issue by its true name. They don't like to call it assisted suicide because suicide is a very grim topic for many people and it doesn't sound very good from a PR perspective. It's hard to sell to the public. Nor do they like to call it euthanasia, as that has some dodgy historical connotations. Instead, our leaders prefer the new, much nicer term that they've concocted in the lab: assisted dying. Now, doesn't that sound so much nicer? The media, true to form, has run with this, printing article after article using the new invented phrase in the hopes that it will stick. But if we're being honest, it's not quite accurate, is it? If you help someone to die, that's just a nice way of saying you killed them or helped them to commit suicide. This is simply language manipulation and spin propaganda of the worst kind. Why don't we call a spade and call it what it is: assisted suicide. They want doctors to help people to end their own lives. Now, usually proponents of this view will say that it's for people who are going through great physical pain due to some illness or condition, which is obviously tragic. Kenny insists that his bill is about taking away quote-unquote unbearable pain, although this phrase appears nowhere in the actual text. But the experts in this area, the palliative care doctors and nurses, have already said that good care will minimize and alleviate pain. In other words, the people pushing this bill are not listening to the medical experts who say that better care, not suicide, is what patients need. But what's more, Kenny's stance makes no sense. By his standard, why is taking your life due to physical pain okay, but not emotional pain? When someone, God forbid, goes through some kind of terrible tragedy, like say the loss of a loved one, and they consider ending it all, would you tell them to go through with it and try to make it easier for them? Would you say it's a good way to end their suffering? Of course not. No compassionate person would do such a thing. You would do whatever you could to help and comfort that person. So why does that standard apply to one kind of pain but not the other? But of course, there's a very good reason why politicians wouldn't want to be direct about this. For almost a decade now, our politicians have expressed sympathy for the appalling suicide epidemic that Ireland has experienced in recent years. They never miss a chance to show up at an event, attend photo ops, or send out tweets on Suicide Awareness Day, speaking about self-harm and the need to look out for one another as a society. For example, in 2018, when the government moved to shut down a mental health facility in Dublin, Breed Smith of PBP said, "Coming in the middle of a spike in the numbers of young women in the adjacent area who died tragically from suicide, this move highlights again how the state is failing our young people with mental health issues. It simply is not a priority, and this shows it clearly. For all the government's rhetoric about how we as a nation need to prioritize mental health, we can see that this is all just hollow waffle." And yet, for all her faux moral outrage and indignation, Breed's party is the one spearheading this bill to try and make assisted suicide easier. Hollow waffle is right. Similarly, Sinn Féin has backed the assisted suicide bill and intends to vote in favour of it, And yet, as recently as 2016, Mary Lou McDonald was Sinn Féin's spokesperson for mental health and suicide prevention. So to be clear, Mary Lou went from the Sinn Féin spokesperson charged with preventing suicides to backing a law which makes it easier for you to take your own life. If this woman didn't have double standards, she wouldn't have any standards at all. It'll be interesting to see what side of the divide leaders like Micheál Martin come down on, considering just 2 weeks ago he said the following: "Today is World Suicide Prevention Day. It's so important to be alert to the needs of others and watch out for those who are feeling vulnerable. Checking in on someone and offering a listening ear can make all the difference. Let's work together to prevent suicide." Similarly, Leo Varadkar once said, "Suicide prevention is everyone's concern." So what's it going to be, Taoiseach? What'll it be, Taoiseach? Do you actually want to prevent suicides, or are you going to vote for this bill and tell somebody who's already on the edge of death that they should jump? How can we be a society that pushes Mental Health Week and mindfulness, but also euthanasia? How can we promote well-being and at the same time put down the vulnerable and the desperate? By attempting to normalize the use of suicide in order to avoid pain, all we will do is further hurt our families, our friends, and our communities. Haven't we all had our fill of death this year? Do we really want to be a country where doctors kill our parents and grandparents? Where those professionals who are supposed to guard people's health end up taking the lives of the infirm and the weak? Let's not sacrifice our loved ones and our decency on the altar of being trendy and modern. Please like and share this video, and if you enjoyed it, please consider signing up for a monthly donation via the link on screen to help us produce more content like this. Alternative media like Gript needs all the assistance it can get, and every donation goes a long way. As always, thanks for watching.